online, on Radio Player, and on 106.6 FM. This is Wycombe Sound, the Wycombe Wanderers Show.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Wycombe Wanderers Show. Lots for you this evening, as you'd expect, with myself and Bob.
A very good evening to you. Yes, we will be reflecting, albeit fairly briefly, on the defeats to Queen's Park Rangers and also Stoke City.
Tom Hancock will be joining us as well with some stats and a look over who's been playing particularly well and who's been sticking out in terms of what they've been contributing to the team.
We will be hearing Gareth Ainsworth and his thoughts after both of those games, and we will be catching up with a former player, Mark Rogers.
And we'll be catching up with Georgia Grou as well, who is a winner at the Community Impact Bucks Women in Charity Awards. That's what it's called. I massively lost momentum because I forgot the name of the... I'm back with it now, though. Yes, that's all.
Yeah, okay.
Community Impact Bucks Women in Charity
Awards. It's nice that, that somebody associated with Wycombe Wanderers has at least picked up a win.
Yes, first bit of silverware of the season.
Indeed,
sort of.
Yes. Did she get 3 points or did she get a trophy?
I'm not sure. We'll find out all that to come in the next hour as well. Plus, lots more Wycombe Wanderers news as well. But we were talking before the show as well about the sort of... we're into a bit of a numbers chat now, aren't we? Because the points required and the games remaining are quite similar.
Yes, they are. So we need 12 points to get to safety, and we've only got 11 games left. And you begin to think, the maths now even isn't looking particularly good and particularly hopeful, really, is it?
No, I must confess, even with my optimistic outlook, when you put it like that, it's quite stark, isn't it? It was 11 games, 12 points.
Yes, and you think, well, yeah, okay, that's 4 games, and then you look at our goal difference and you think, oh, okay, well, that's another game until we've caught up, and then we're relying on everybody above us to lose, which of course doesn't really happen at this time of the season because everyone's desperate to try and avoid the relegation zone, and so it begins to look a bit grim, really. And then when I noticed that actually the international break is now only sort of like a week on Saturday, you do start to think, actually, it will be nice to have that. Normally I can't stand the international break and I really, really dislike it, whereas this time I'm slightly thinking, good, it will be nice not to have to worry for a couple of weeks.
And of course we've not seen a goal for a while.
No, that's true as well. And I think the thing that was so depressing about sort of like QPR and Stoke as well was just... we just need a bit of hope. We just need something positive to cling to at the moment. It reminds me slightly of the opening 7 games in the season where we were looking for, for the first goal and then the first point and then the first win. And, thank goodness they all came along. We're not still waiting for those. But you just feel at the minute, we just need something to go our way.
Does it sound too much of a cliche to say we really need to put a little mini run together?
Well, all of those things, though, and and they're cliches because they're true. The whole we needed to write a story, we need to put a run together. We do need to do all of those things, and even then, it's still looking like a bit of an impossible task now.
Because this would be the greatest of all great escapes.
Oh, exactly. And and you keep thinking that, and that's the thing. And actually, a win would just mentally be so good for all of us, fans, players, club officials, because it does make you start to believe that, maybe the impossible dream is still on. Goodness me, if we could win the next 3 going into the international break, and we're playing Preston this weekend, and clearly we beat them 4-1 in the FA Cup. It doesn't seem that long ago now, it was a couple of months. Then we've got Barnsley at home. Now, obviously, Barnsley are flying at the minute and doing really, really well, but, we said similar things about Reading when they came to visit. And then we're away to Coventry City, who are a team who we always seem to struggle against, but are down our end of the table. If we could get 9 points from those 3 games, then suddenly, you go into April thinking, well, it's possible.
And I think as well, what must be a psychological issue, perhaps, is that, when a team scores first and it's not Wycombe, you think, I've got to come from behind. And it has been done before, but you tend to think it's less likely, don't you, when you're watching?
Completely. And I think really for the last 3 games, especially against Watford, as soon as they scored, I sort of thought that was it. And, really, again, Stoke and Queen's Park Rangers, it's it's difficult to see us getting back into these games. Whereas you feel possibly if we are able to get the first goal, we would then adopt all of the tactics that we all know so well that Wycombe Wanderers are brilliant at, to frustrate the opposition, and possibly, we would manage to hang on and get those 3 points. But as soon as we go a goal down, and again, at this level, teams are so good at then managing the game to ensure that actually that they hang on for the win. And that's what we found, I think, in the last, definitely in the last 3.
So let's hear briefly from manager Gareth Ainsworth speaking after the defeat against Stoke.
Both teams had their chances, the moments of quality in both boxes, what I've said, are the difference at this level, without a doubt. You get household names. There's a Champions League player winner on the pitch today against us. So you do get these, moments, and you've got to make them count. And Stoke scored from a set play today. We had probably a similar amount of set plays today, and they scored one of theirs. That's one moment that changes a game. And then their first goal, is a good bit of play. But again, we should be more secure on the edge of our box. We're still fighting hard. The body language at the end in my boys was superb. Even at 2-0 down, we know it's tough. We know that games are running out, but some real positive performances from young Anis Mehmeti. I thought was outstanding again. Admiral Musqui, both starting their careers. Excellent. And that's what we do at Wycombe. So really proud of the boys as always, and they're never going to give up. That's for certain. No matter how dark this fight seems, we'll never give up, and I'm proud of that. But the pressure probably told. Stoke are a good side. They're a big squad, and probably underachieving. But we're definitely not underachieving. We're in the Championship, and that's a brilliant league to be in at the moment. We've got 12 games to go now. We need to win 75% of them, which is going to be tough. But again, we're never saying it's over till it's over.
Great to hear the manager speaking so positively. Tom also joins us from JJ's Left Foot. Evening, sir.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me again.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on. And as you say, watching the game against Stoke, you must have felt that there were certain players who did play particularly well, and great to see the likes of Admiral get a start and Uchi doing well as well.
Yeah, I think Musgrave had a hamstring problem. Obviously, his usual injuries are kept under wraps. But yeah, he came back in and played in a front two for the first time, really. And yeah, it's nice. He's played a few different roles already. He looks like he's a really versatile player. I hope, looking beyond this season, we might have a chance of keeping him next season, depending on how he does between now and the end of the season. He's out of contract at Leicester. He's definitely one I'd like to keep hold of if we can, yeah.
I think that's going to be a really, really key thing over the summer as to how we then do next season is who we manage to keep. Admiral, yes, has been really good. Anis Mehmeti, clearly, is a player who just looks absolutely wonderful. And I think, he's been fun in the Championship. I think he'd have lots of fun in League One.
I get the feeling we'll probably keep hold of him for another year. I certainly hope we do. I think you've got to get him on a long-term deal. And if he lights it up next season, then you get a good fee for him, or we bounce back. This is working on the assumption that we go down. No one wants to say that, but
no, that's
hearing your chat at the beginning, you know what the situation is. But yeah, this is the place for him to develop. You know what he's like in an attacking sense. He's got that natural flair, that natural talent. There's work to be done, sort of, his off-the-ball work, as Gareth mentioned, after the QPR game. But yeah, he'll be a key one to keep, and it will be interesting, I think. All bar Mehmeti, Allsop, Stockdale of the kind of senior players. Feels strange to call Mehmeti senior, but he's in the first team. They're the only three not contracted beyond this season so far. So I think we've made a good start on that. Obviously, bids might come in. You rejected a bid for Trelon Yedinma from Luton in January. But yeah, I think we've kind of started early, making sure that we've got a squad together for the longer term, and hopefully we can build on it and not just have a massive clear out and start again. I don't think that would happen.
No, I think, obviously it's really important. We've heard Gareth speak recently, although he doesn't, obviously like to say about next season and where we will be, but he has hinted that, if we could be a yo-yo club, if we could, if we are going down, if we could then manage to come back up again, that is something that, yes, we're looking to be one of those clubs. Well, clearly, if we've got any aspiration to be like that, keeping somebody like Anis is absolutely essential for next season. And then I agree, yes, definitely, if the bids come in for him, and who knows, possibly even from a Premier League club for ridiculous amounts of money, then I think it will be worth our while cashing in. But I think definitely we need him really next season, because we obviously we want to do absolutely as best we can. We don't really want to be starting again in the summer looking round for players to recruit.
Yeah, it's not really been the way, even this summer just gone. Okay, partly that was enforced because of how short a turnaround there was between the playoff final and the start of this season. Also, budget-wise, the Cougs have preached sustainability since they came in, and we were never going to go and spend money that we don't have with a chance of maybe staying up, but potentially risking the lot. And you've got to look at clubs like Rotherham. 2017, they went down with the lowest ever championship points total, which we need one more point to beat. And, they were an awful team that season. When they came straight back up by the playoffs, narrowly went down, then went up again, and now they're looking close to maybe making it stick. We'll see, because they keep having COVID outbreaks. But it can be done. Burton survived the first season, went down, was steady in League One. They only really dropped off this season because Nigel Clough left in the summer. But it's doable. I think we've got the right structure from top to bottom, and no one likes to see us lose most weeks. It's not been an enjoyable season in that sense. It's been even more frustrating, obviously being kept away from the ground. But there is a bigger picture here, and hopefully next season is more positive, and we can start to see that, and make a fist of a promotion push. That's what I'm hoping for. It'd be nice to be among the favourites, but we'll see.
Absolutely. I mean, that would be such an unusual place for us to be as well, because obviously that hasn't happened for for a very, very long time, if possibly at all whilst we've been in the league. But yeah, definitely, how nice it just sounds to even say, it would be nice to be among the promotion teams, and it'd be nice to be winning, more than sort of like one or two games and then going on a long losing streak. That just, sounds wonderful.
It's easier said than done. It'll be a tough league. You've got, who's in that league at the moment? Hull, Charlton, Portsmouth, Ipswich, Sunderland, Peterborough. They're only three are going to come up. You've got probably Sheffield Wednesday, potentially Birmingham City, maybe coming down. It's going to, it's a tough league, but we got out of it last season.
Really tough league. In that all of those teams that you talk about, you do naturally think, actually, they don't really belong in League One. And I know, you can have this ridiculous argument about, well, who does, who doesn't. But I suppose what I mean by that is that they are teams that eventually are going to get out of that division. And if you happen to be in with them in a season where, say, Sunderland and Ipswich, both go on amazing runs, then clearly you're really just looking at coming up via the promotion places, which obviously is a bit of a lottery.
Yeah, and clubs like that will still be able to outspend us. They're massive clubs. Being in the third tier doesn't change that. We'll be in a better financial position than we would have been had we stayed in League One. We've baked in the TV money. I think it's around 8 million. We've not gone spending loads of money on players. I'm not saying we're going to go and have a massive spending spree in the summer, but in theory we'll be able to shop in a higher market than we were before. And we know what Ainsworth can do when he's only got peanuts to spend. So hopefully with a bit more money we can make ourselves competitive. And I wouldn't want to go into the season thinking, right, it's top two or else, but the idea, I think, will be to challenge for the top six. I mean, Pete Kuig spoke last season pretty openly about being prepared to yo-yo. So, I think the messages that are coming out at the moment as well from the club are that is the intention, and longer term we do want to try and establish ourselves in the Championship. I don't see why that shouldn't be the aim.
That is exactly what we hope the aim is. We are obviously still in the Championship at the moment. On Tuesday night, we visited Queen's Park Rangers, where we went down 1-0 to an Ilias Chair goal, and afterwards Gareth spoke to Matt Cecil.
Gareth, not the return you would have liked to QPR, both in an empty stadium and ending in defeat, but you're proud of your team's efforts tonight?
Yeah, of course, always. Like I said to the boys, we keep plugging away, we keep learning every week. We're learning a lot. I thought we learned a lot tonight about two different ways of playing. We played first half, I thought we got on the ball really well, caused them problems. Second half, bringing on the heavier artillery, again caused them problems. I think the shot count, the final third entries in the box are all in our favour, but I think mistakes are probably in our favour as well, and that's the difference. I keep saying, you can't make mistakes at this level. Their first goal, or the only goal, is too soft for me to concede, and once we do that, then QPR can shut up shop second half. If it's 0-0 at home, they're probably thinking we're still going for it, but 1-0 up with what we had on the pitch at the end there, Mark's a clever guy, and he really shut the shop up and brought Jeff Cameron on, who just took all the space in that attacking third. But you can do that when you go 1-0 up, and that's the difference. We've got to make sure that we can get the first goal in games, make our opportunities count. But again, effort's great, performance levels. I'm just so proud of the boys. We are performing at the best we can perform, and at this level it's just coming up short. Can't ask any more, but we'll go again Saturday.
Is that hurting the morale in the team? Obviously that's 4 defeats in a row and no goals. No matter what you try and what the boys are trying at the moment, it's just not coming off at the moment, is it?
I mean, it's one of those things. We've got goal scorers in the team. We know that. We've got the record league goal scorer. We've got Uchi who's firing. We've got Scott Kashka who can find goals. But at the moment, we're just shy of that, and we're not testing the keeper enough. Anis Mehmeti had a rasping strike, and I think we've had a couple of close calls today. But QPR have hit the post as well. I think it was offside their second chance. But we do need to get the first goal, and then we can take control of games. It's so important at this level, but quality players are important at this level as well, and like I say, naming Jeff Cameron coming on, ex-Premier League player, to show things up with a real matureness. I've got a team of youngsters learning their trade, but I'm so proud of them, and whatever happens, this level is fantastic to be at. We want to stay here, we want to come back here, whichever one it is, but we're learning plenty while we're here.
A few years ago you took Eberichi Eze on loan from QPR, and he's blossomed into the Premier League. In Anis Mehmeti, you've got another player who's really lighting up this Wycombe team and getting a lot of admirers.
Yeah, he's fantastic on the ball, needs to learn a little bit off the ball, and he's in no better place to learn that, but I've got a team, a squad that I could praise, not just one player. He'll do really well, Anis. He's got a great career ahead of him, but some of the boys out there tonight are seasoned pros, playing in the Championship. Really proud of them. Hopefully we can get another win soon.
Tom, one of the things that we've obviously spoken about is players staying. I think another thing that we also probably need to hope for is that Mark Warburton continues to be at QPR, because obviously Gareth has got a lot of love for Queen's Park Rangers, and I always feel that if he was going to go anywhere, probably QPR or maybe Reading, which I think is close to where he actually does live. They're the two most likely options.
Well, I think the thing this season, rightly or wrongly, how we've might have actually done us a favour and entered his stock somewhat. I think obviously it was at its highest last season when Sunderland and Millwall and Lincoln were all having a look. But I don't know, QPR are actually relatively sensible and relatively patient with managers. So there was a point probably when we played them at Adams Park where it looked like Warburton might go, but he's really turned it around. And for the last few years, they've kind of been cutting costs and trying to balance the books after dropping out the Premier League, because their wage bill was absolutely colossal when they came down. But they're going to go on to better and better things. And hopefully he keeps doing a good job. And Reading, potentially in with a shot of promotion this season as well. So at the moment, Blackburn would be the one I'd worry about potentially, but I think Touchwood will be okay, and he won't go. I mean, unless it's absolutely the right opportunity. Yeah, I think we're okay for the moment. I hope. I'm not as worried as I was a couple of years ago, where everyone did seem to think he might be off.
Yeah, I think we just have to keep our fingers crossed. And again, I agree about Blackburn. I think that's probably, he'll go there one day. Hopefully not at the moment. And obviously, he seems to be very settled, sort of like where he is, sort of like living wise. But yes, I think those three clubs are all a possibility, and so let's hope that they continue to do well. And luckily, yes, they all are at the moment. Tom, as always, thank you very much for joining us. It's been absolutely brilliant having you on.
No worries, thanks for that.
This is Wycombe Sound.
Still to come on this week's edition of the Wycombe Wanderers Show, we'll hear from Wycombe Wanderers Sport and Education Trust award winner Georgia Grou. That's on the way. But first, as we continue our chat to former Wanderers players, it's been 20 years since that fantastic FA Cup semi-final with Keith Ryan scoring that goal against Liverpool at Villa Park. Someone who was a member not of that team on that day, but certainly of that team in that cup run, and also scored, of course, against Grimsby. Mark Rogers, who we've been speaking to from Canada, started off a bit about chatting with him about obviously his time at the club playing under Laurie Sanchez, but started off about how he came to be a Wycombe Wanderers player.
Yeah, it's going back. I mean, after all those heading the ball and concussions, it's not as easy to remember anymore. But in the late 90s, my brother and I had the opportunity to, and had been approached by somebody locally here in Vancouver, where I am, with, the proposition and the sort of, they put it in our head about the possibility of going over to England and giving it a try. This gentleman's name was Alan Churchyard, and had close connections with Paul Sturrock and Alan Ball. Two names that I'm sure your listeners would know and remember. So we had the opportunity to come over there, and unfortunately my brother hurt himself while we were training to get ready for that, and they were both on preseason. So a gentleman, friend of my wife's family, actually, we're staying with my wife's family in West London, approached and say, hey, listen, would he be interested in going to Wycombe Wanderers to train for a week? It'll help him get ready for the English game, etc. And I leapt at that because it was, obviously a big, you watch it on the television here all the time, but it's still, until you're actually out there on the pitch or seeing, how they interact, it's largely an unknown for a kid from Tsawwassen, British Columbia. So went out there. I still remember I had to go to a place called Rent-A-Dent and rent probably the dodgiest car I've ever driven, and learn on the fly, driving on the other side of the road. And I just drove myself to Wycombe. And I showed up at Adams Park, and I still remember the first time I saw Adams Park. I'm showing up to play at then, a League One. It was called Division 2 back then. And I remember thinking to myself, well, they'll be playing in like a small little, like a park almost, right? And I pull up at Adams Park. I'm like, wow, nice ground. It's beautiful. And I thought, okay, this is going to be fun. So we were training at RF Halt, and I spent a week there, and it went well. And I think my type of football I played, and I think it suited the English game quite a bit, especially at that time. And, more direct football. I was fairly athletic, so I could compete with people on that from an athletic standpoint. Definitely raw in my understanding of the game, and maybe not as technically gifted as some of the other players, but I definitely felt like I could keep up and compete. And so at the end of the week, Neil Smiley, the manager at that time, asked me if I'd want to participate in a preseason game away at Chesham. And I still remember going, okay, Chesham, where's Chesham? And brought out sort of the league table. I'm like, well, these guys are like 3 divisions below us or whatever. And I thought to myself, if in Vancouver, if they're 3 divisions below you in the local amateur leagues, it's going to be a double-digit scoreline, So we went out there, and I was on the bench, and I could not believe how quick the game was, how good the Chesham players were in relation to the Wycombe players, like the standard of play. And that's kind of when the penny started to really drop from a reality standpoint, how many good players there are on that island. You know, it's just the depth of quality and talent was something that I wasn't as familiar with. And I loved it. I just thought it was, you know, the culture and how the game is absorbed over in England was just fantastic. It was the first thing I fell in love with. And I came on with 20 minutes left. I think the score was tied, and I set up a goal to Danny Bowman. I played in the middle of the park, actually, center mid in that game, which I know a lot of fans will think back and probably laugh about. But we won the game. Neil Smiley asked me to stick around and asked if I'd like to stick around. And I thought, well, I've put a week of work in. I've got one foot in the door here. I've made an impression, a positive one. Why would I look to go anywhere else? And so my other trials were at St. Johnstone, where Paul Sturrock was, and Alan Ball at Portsmouth. And so I decided to stay with Wycombe, and I was there for 6 or 7 years. So it was a fantastic experience.
And I guess you couldn't have imagined as well first of all, how long you'd have spent at the club, but also how popular you became with the fans, and also what a great group of players that you were associated with at that time.
Oh, fantastic guys. You know, as far as the fans go, I think, you know, being somebody that wasn't English or Scottish, Irish, Welsh, somebody of maybe was just a bit different for them. I think they probably appreciated my heart, how hard I worked, maybe not so much my distribution. And I think what really helped me is the Independent Supporters Club sponsored me at that stage. And I got to know them, you know, and they were so great to me. They looked after, you know, my wife would go with them on the supporters coach. They really looked after her. They made us feel welcome and part of the community and the club. And they taught us a bit about it. Like they would tell us about, you know, the Middlesbrough game from the 70s in the FA Cup. And I started to learn a little bit more about not just the town, but the connection the club had with the town. So they started that, and it really helped from an adjustment standpoint. But then once you get into the dressing room, you start looking and getting to know guys like Keith Ryan, who I could not hold in more high regard, club guys like Jason Cousins, Davey Carroll. These are guys that, you know, just were part of the fabric of that place. And so what I tried to do is I just used them as guidance. I'd ask them questions, but also just kind of copy what they were doing, because the day-to-day ritual of what they're doing. Now, maybe not some of the horse betting. I didn't copy that. I thought I you know, as you're playing at Wycombe, you're not making millions of dollars. I thought what I did make, I'd try and keep in my pocket. But we had some great times. And the thing that came across to me with that group was, They had such a great personality in that group and a commitment to one another. And when they trained and played, it was like a light switch going off, and it was so competitive, so combative. Expectations once Laurie Sanchez had come in changed and were much higher. And it became like a very good environment for competition. And I think that, especially in one-off games where we definitely adopted that underdog mentality, you know, the FA Cup run being the prime example, we really thrived on that, and we were a very difficult team to play against. So, yes, you know, to circle back to your question, that group of guys, fantastic. You know, Paul McCarthy's of the world, you know, Jamie Bates, Martin Taylor, best goalkeeper I ever played with, Sean Devine up front. There's some really, really good players. Michael Simpson, Danny Bowman. Yeah, I could go on and on.
I'm sure you get asked all the time about the cup run, but it's strange to think that it's 20 years ago now. But every game in that, especially obviously going to the semi-final, which unfortunately you were injured, but so many of those games just stand out with such great memories.
Oh yeah, and it's been fun because, you know, I'm on Twitter, and when Wycombe releases a video or somebody, hey, it was 20 years ago today, it catches you off guard a little bit because you're like, wow, that's 20 years. But then, like on the Zoom call, I'm actually see my face on the screen. And I look every bit 20 years old. It looks 20 years on my face for sure. But yeah, from a memory standpoint, it seems like yesterday. And some of those moments, you don't realize at the time how long they're going to live with you, you know, and the legacy you created within the club, and how fond the fans are at looking back and remembering those moments. I mean, the resilience in that group, you know, how many replays we went through, I think 2 or 3. I think Millwall, Grimsby, and Wimbledon all went to a replay during that. And then to play Leicester, beat them away, and of course to lose against Liverpool, but in a very respectable fashion, if there is such a thing when you lose. It just was, it was the moment for me as a footballer outside of, and I still put this above playing for my country being the next big thing. But those are the two peak moments in my soccer playing career.
And you must have been so proud to have such a key contribution as well in scoring against Grimsby.
Yeah, I'd been playing quite regularly since Matty Lawrence had left. And he left I think Laurie liked the type of player I was, but saw an opportunity to get me some minutes because we had quite established and experienced center backs in the team. Jason Cousin, Jamie Bates, Paul McCarthy, and I think he wanted to get me minutes and get me more groomed. He saw me more as a center back, but I could do the job at right back. And, certainly from a defensive standpoint, and the expectations on a full back aren't, I certainly wasn't Trent Alexander-Arnold, let's just say that. But from a defensive standpoint, I could do the job. And playing beside those type of guys in that run, you develop a bit of confidence. And all the way up to the Grimsby game, and Martin Lee swings a beautiful cross in on a corner, and I mean it was just there to be headed into the goal. So one of my favorite moments personally is that run, but especially that goal, because that goal put us in a position where it's like we're going to go through now, and the realization at the final whistle was, wait a minute, that's the furthest Wycombe had been at that stage in an FA Cup, was getting to the fourth round. And, you've seen the pictures from the dressing room after, and there was a palpable sense of accomplishment there for sure.
And I know when we spoke to you in July as well, we were talking about, what it's like to play under Laurie Sanchez, and he actually gave you the belief that you could actually go on and win the competition.
Yeah, I mean, he was a no-nonsense guy, tough. You look at the guy and you remember the upset against Liverpool that he had, and by him scoring the winning goal, uncompromising, which suited me. He used to say quite frequently, look, if I have to talk to you, my way of giving you motivation or talking to you about if you're doing well is to offer you a new contract. If I have to do much more than that, then you're in the wrong place. He held very high standards. I think it oozed into the players, and it became part of kind of our ethos. I'm sure the fans and that team, one of our primary goals was to get into the championship, and we fell short on that. But I think the season where we started to lag a bit in the league in 2001, and I think it was largely because of that FA Cup run. We played so many extra games, and we had so many injuries, especially up front. Sean Devine had a serious injury. Andy Rammel had come in and out, but was a force up front for us. Andy Baird. So we were really thin in attack. So much so that, as you recall, Keith Ryan was playing up front in those key FA Cup games towards the end. So, it was fantastic. It was just a fantastic time to be there. I wouldn't have chose anything else or anything different.
You mentioned another highlight as well, getting to represent your country, and obviously Wycombe haven't had too many internationals. It must be a great source of pride to be one of those.
Yeah, it's funny. Again, it's because Wycombe coming out of non-league, I became their first full international. Now, albeit Canada doesn't have the same footballing heritage as many other countries, but being a Canadian, it was a great sense of pride for me personally. And I know, the club took a sense of pride, kind of felt that it was part of their natural progression as they became a long-term football league side, was to have that and to be the first one. And now when I go back with my wife and my kids and visit friends and family over there, it is nice to walk by that board and see that. And, over the years as I visited, there'd be, then I remember Jermaine Easter playing for Wales, and there'd be other players. And now the list gets longer and longer as time goes on. And to be the first one is definitely a sense of pride. And it's nice to leave a bit of legacy there with that. But definitely the most proud I was as a Wycombe Wanderer was that FA Cup run. That was fantastic.
And something which must have brought that back again was this year, getting to play against Tottenham as well in the competition. It really sort of reinvigorated those feelings of, like you say, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I got a chance to bring Sam, my son, back for the game at White Hart Lane. And the big reason was, one, they're playing a big side, but White Hart Lane was going to be torn down. I wanted him to see the history of that place. And, we stood with the fans about 7 rows up behind the goal. And what a game. And, I know it'll be something that lingers in my son's mind, although, he was quite young at that stage. But getting Tottenham again in the same round, albeit at Adams Park this time, was great. And I think just what's left with the pandemic, Colin, is that, we're also proud of the achievements of the club, what they've accomplished since, being one game away from going out of the Football League to where they are now. But I think it's tinged with a lot of disappointment from my perspective because, as I mentioned earlier, that connection with the fans is very real with me. And I know that it's hurt and been very painful for them not to be able to go to these matches in such a special year. And that includes the Tottenham match, to get Tottenham in that round. Must have been nice to start at the third round, which is a novelty for us. But it'll definitely be tinged with disappointment, knowing that for me, it's a shame that they haven't had a chance to be at the ground. I know there were a few thousand allowed in earlier in the season, but with frequency, that the match day environment and the whole experience is quite special. And I think everybody's in the same boat, so it's understandable. But it's just the timing could have been better as far as some of the things that Wycombe have accomplished over the last year and a half.
You can't help thinking, watching the Spurs game especially, and you think this would be incredible if that was the stadium was full, and there have been so many other championship games as well, which it does seem so cruel, as you say, in this sort of first time in the championship. And another anniversary which has recently passed is 12 months since the Couigs took over, and you can see that it's not a coincidence that Wycombe's success has coincided with that.
Yeah, I've had an opportunity to get to know Pete fairly well. We've been in touch periodically throughout this last year. What I can say is, he's extremely enthusiastic about Wycombe Wanderers and their success, and passionate about making it happen. He's positive, infectious. I'm sure the people that are around him at the club feel that energy, and they've definitely generated a ton of excitement and injected that into the club. I mean, getting promoted and that game at Oxford, it's another great memory for the fans, against Oxford at Wembley. And so you look at the impact the Couigs have had in such a short period of time, and it's real. And they've been basically walked in the door the day the pandemic started. I mean, here we are in Canada, and we're observing a day today because it's a year today that the pandemic started. And if it's also the anniversary of the Couigs walking through the door, they've walked into an extremely difficult scenario and still kept positivity, gotten them promoted with Gareth, obviously. And so I think despite their league table position right now, the most important thing now is you have to know where you've been to know where you're going. And if you think back to, just a few years ago where they were a game away from going out of the league, to what's happened between then and now with a heartbreaking loss against Southend at Wembley in a promotion game, then getting promoted, solidifying in League One, to a playoff victory against a local rival in Oxford United, to playing in the championship. I think it's overwhelmingly positive the direction this club is going. And I think it's important to remember that when you're in a difficult scenario against clubs that have more backing at this stage and have been solidified in that league, so they have a playing squad that is familiar with it, to Wycombe having next to no off-season to prepare to sign players. They've done their best to sign players, but it takes time, as you know, Colin, to adjust to a new culture, new scenario, new setting for new players. And I think, yes, it's been a difficult season for Wycombe, but as a Wycombe supporter myself, there is no diminished sense of pride in what the club is doing or is fighting for. I hold on a little bit of hope as far as staying up, but it's diminishing. But with that in mind, when I think about the club, it's nothing but positive things.
That's definitely a message that comes across, isn't it? The positivity when you hear the manager speak, and as you say, the Rob and Pete as well, and that's bound to rub off onto the supporters too.
Yeah, it's understandable when you turn on Twitter to see that there's frustration, some disappointment. But all I can say is, that's understandable. Nobody wants to see their side losing or in that league position. But at the same time, like I said, Wycombe have a very unique culture and philosophy that takes time for people to buy into, because it's probably a little bit foreign and different to some of the players they've signed. And it doesn't just happen overnight. And it's going to be a thing that, they tried their best to sign players to keep in this division. Like I said, it's becoming challenging now, but I guarantee you those guys down at the club won't have given up hope. They'll continue to fight. And then it's on the players to be a reflection of the fans when they're out on the pitch, show how hungry they are to stay in the league or to compete at that level of play. And I think that's really my takeaway from my time with that club, is really the bottom line for any Wycombe supporter or any supporter of a British club is the fans really want to see players that are a reflection of how they feel about the club themselves. And if the players are giving their all and sincerely, because really there's nowhere to hide when you're out there, the fans are very much more patient and appreciative. And I think that's what the players are fighting for now. I know they're probably exhausted by this part of the season, but they have to just keep putting their head down and remember that they're representing the club and those values. And if they do that, I'm sure they'll hold their heads up high at the end of the season, and then Wycombe will prepare and continue to move forward.
Oh, it's been great to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time, and obviously all the best to you and your family. Hope you all stay well, and things improve in Canada as well.
Thanks, Colin. Great talking to you. All the best to everybody over there.
This is Wycombe Sound.
Final part of this week's Wycombe Wanderers Show. Fantastic to hear from Mark Rogers. We spoke to him in July, before the birth of the Wycombe Wanderers Show, talking to him about the what an occasion that was. Were you there for the birth of the Wycombe Wanderers Show?
We haven't had much sleep since then.
But we were talking to him then about how fantastic it was for Wycombe to get promotion, and it seems like such a long time ago, July now, doesn't it?
It really does, and in football terms, it isn't really, considering that actually normally the season would have ended in May. But yes, it does. It does now feel like actually this season has gone on quite a long time.
And we meant to ask him about whether when he came over and he seemed to adopt the nickname of Ted Rogers, or whether he'd have known who Ted Rogers was. I imagine not. And Bob's done some research.
Yeah, I was wondering, did they have 3-2-1 in Canada? Was it a bit like, say, Millionaire, where it was exported all over the world? But no, apparently not. It started off in Spain, so we copied the Spanish game show called Un, Dos, Tres. But other than that, it didn't seem to go very far.
If you wonder what happens during the ad breaks, there you go. That's
yeah. We are listening to the ads as well.
Absolutely. You might have heard.
Also thinking about 3-2-1.
You might have heard as well. It was International Women's Day on Monday, and a great opportunity to celebrate the achievements of women. And Community Impact Bucks, local charity, launched their inaugural Women in Charity Awards. And one of the winners was Georgia Grou, who is from the Wycombe Wanderers Sport and Education Trust. She's been doing some great health work, and we've been speaking to her to find out a bit more about what's involved.
Even some of my friends still aren't sure of what we do. So I think it's been a great way to sort of catapult the work we are doing and sort of make people realise it's not all about sport all the time.
Because I guess as well, it's really important that the club does have this charity arm, if you like, and is able to do such great work in the community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we probably deal with quite a few of the fans. Obviously, a lot of the children, they come to our sessions and end up going to games and sort of like falling in love with football. So yeah, we're definitely sort of quite intertwined with the club, and we do get out there in the community and do our bit.
And obviously health is a real part of your remit, if you like. Give us some examples of some of the work that you've done and people that you've supported as well.
So I think the biggest project that I've worked on whilst being with the Trust is a project called Keep Moving Forward, and that is to help people on their mental health recovery journey. And we have different little bits that are involved in that, such as yoga, Indian clubs. We do wellbeing walks, which we've done throughout the pandemic, sort of as we can. And that's pretty much for anyone that wants a bit of extra support. We've had a project called Doorsteppers that started for COVID to help with the isolation side of it. And it's normally me. I will come and visit you on your doorstep, sort of keeping a distance and stuff. And we'll have a good chat for an hour or so, just about whatever. So there's that out there. And I'm currently doing some online fitness sessions that hopefully will move back into person soon. To help people stay active during all of this as well.
And you're obviously so passionate about, the great effect sport and obviously specifically football can have on mental health as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's always been a big part of my life, sort of having football, sport and all that sort of stuff, and how it's helped with my mental health. So I'm very lucky to be in a position where I can use the club badge to go out there and sort of help other people with their mental health through sport and activity and things like that.
And there are great examples as well of where you've reached out and helped people and really sort of been a shoulder, if you like, for them, at really low points for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's bound to happen when you are working within mental health and supporting people, that you will come across people that do need a bit of extra support, or you do have to have hard phone calls. And obviously I've been able to do that due to like experience and that sort of stuff. I'd like to, I don't want to sound big-headed, but I'd like to think I've helped the people that I work with.
It's difficult, isn't it, when you win an award? You don't want to say, "Oh, I'm great," but on the other hand, it's really fantastic to be able to highlight the work that you do. That, as we sort of touched on at the end, people might not even quite realise it actually goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this is the thing. Like, I don't do my job, and I don't go and help people to have the thank yous and to win things and to get all this recognition. I do it because that's the type of person I am, and I want to be able to help people. So to obviously get this award, and they actually, some of the participants made a little video with thank you notes that they were all holding up. And oh my gosh, I'm so glad that it wasn't done in person, because I had half a cookie in my mouth. I started crying my eyes out, because obviously you don't expect to get thank yous when you're not looking for it. So it was so lovely. Note to self, no matter what it is in the future, whether I'm recording or not, don't have half a cookie in my mouth. I'm just so glad it wasn't on Zoom, because that would not have been pretty.
It must be really nice as well. For, I know Sam at the Trust, she nominated you, and that must be great to be able to know that you've got that kind of recognition for what you've done.
It's definitely helped me in like my professional growth, and just in general to have such a supportive team. Like, everyone at Wycombe Wanderers Sports and Education Trust, we are all sort of always pushing each other to get the best and all this sort of stuff. So the fact that Sam went out of her way to sort of nominate me and like make a secret video, and like I had no idea I was even nominated until I won. I got told that I had to go because it was like a networking event. So she kept it all quiet, like everyone did. And it's just lovely. It's such a great atmosphere there. It definitely helps with getting out in the community when you've got such a strong team behind you.
And it must really kind of drive you forward to want to do even more as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like, they're all such positive forces. And I think getting this recognition and knowing that the work we do is good just makes me, and I'm sure the others feel the same, it makes you want to do more. And help more and engage with more. So yeah, it's definitely a good driving force.
And hopefully really inspirational as well for other people to see that the work that you've done, and obviously you're only young yourself, and it's really nice that you can dedicate your kind of work and time to these people and these causes.
Yeah, like I really hope that at least one person has sort of seen this and realised that you can keep pushing through, because obviously I've got mental health experiences myself. And I'm in a position now where I can help other people with that. And I hope that it does make someone else realise that you can literally achieve anything. It doesn't matter about how low you've been or how high you've been, as long as you keep pushing forward. That's sort of the message I want to send out through working in the community.
So what's sort of next for you? Have you got any other upcoming projects as well that you're especially pleased with and looking forward to carrying out? So
actually, I've just managed, I think it was earlier on this week actually, I managed to secure some funding for a project that I've been chasing for probably about a year now. And the project is called Get Active, and it's a physical activity project for people living with disabilities over the age of 18. And I'm hoping the first session of that will be running in July in person. So I'm super excited to get that going, because I know there's not a lot of different services offered to do with that in Wycombe at the moment. And then, yeah, I'm just looking forward to sort of being ready to support everyone when we come out of lockdown and get as many people signed up to keep moving forward as I can and all that sort of stuff, because the support's there. And I'm just excited to get people over to it.
And it must be really exciting and obviously challenging as well for you to be working in this area at such a difficult time with the pandemic, but being able to use, your skills and what's on offer to be able to help people at this time.
There's such a range of different emotions and struggles and experiences flying around, depending on who you are. I've been very fortunate to be able to work through this and to be there to support people. And obviously it's been tough for me as well. So I've had to constantly make sure I'm learning and like I understand what's going on, and that I'm always coming out with a positive foot, so I am that supportive person for everyone. And it has been tough, but there is light at the end of the tunnel now, which is so exciting, and I can't wait.
And you must have been so pleased to be part of the awards as well, especially on International Women's Day.
I'm very much a women support women type of person, and I was just so excited to see some familiar faces sort of being commended for awards or winning them. So obviously when I saw myself, it was a big shock that I was part of that group of women and I've been recognised as part of that. So yeah, it was lovely.
Great to chat to G, and also to learn from her as well. We've learnt today that if you are going to an award ceremony of any type or might be shortlisted for an award, don't have half a cuckoo in your mouth at the same time.
No, and I love the whole image that conjures up, and I do sort of assume that even if you are taking part in a virtual award ceremony, you should really sort of like dress up and, you know, you'd be ready. You
Absolutely.
Be, you know, at the crucial moment, you wouldn't actually be eating a cookie at the time.
No, I think it's because she genuinely didn't know that she'd won, so I think that's...
that's so much nicer, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, that's so much more genuine than award ceremonies where it's all set up and obviously the person has won. Can I take you back for a moment to Saturday's game? And I know that we're sort of not talking too much about the previous games.
No. But yes, though, please do.
Indeed. It was very nice of Matt Cecil, who was doing the commentary of Stoke against Wycombe. And he mentioned Wycombe Sound, which is very kind of him.
Welcome back then to the Bet365 Stadium for second half coverage of Stoke City versus Wycombe Wanderers. The score is 0-0 at half-time. Big shout out and a thank you to Wycombe Sound, most notably to Chris Phillips and to Bob Johnson for the loan of our commentary equipment. As we mentioned earlier, the BBC, who have been covering our games and providing the iFollow coverage for many years, are unable to travel to away games outside of their region. So it fell to us as the club to provide the iFollow feed, and we're grateful for Bob and Chris and the Wycombe Sound team for the loan of their equipment.
Grateful for Bob. There we go. You can have that.
Big shout out to Matt. Hello. That's quite all right, Matt. It's nice to know that our ISDN kit is going to the games, even if we're not.
Yes, and the number 5 is performing well.
Yeah, indeed, yes, because we did have that problem earlier on in the season where, yes, they had to dial a number, and the number 5 button, unfortunately, wasn't working that particular day, and the number that they needed to dial had lots of 5s in it.
Have we got time for a notice board section of the show?
Oh, very quickly, yes. So currently, there is a shirt that is being auctioned off for the trust. It is a must-have memento, so it says here, from the historic 2019-2020 campaign. Was presented to Cherry Red Records managing director Adam Valeso as part of the record label's sponsorship deal. The auction currently runs until 10 p.m. On Saturday, the 13th of March. Also includes another dozen items as well. Proceeds will all go to the Wycombe Wanderers Trust. If you basically go onto the Wycombe Wanderers website, you will find out more information about it. It is being hosted on the fantastically named Jumblebee website. And if you want the actual address, it's jumblebee.co.uk/WWFC Trust Auction.
I thought Must Have Memento was a former player.
That would be good, actually. Yes, he was quite good, Must Have Memento. He did score some goals. We could do with him back at the minute.
Yes. Preston next, of course.
Indeed, yes. Visiting Adams Park for the second time this year. Let's hope it was the same result as it was back in January, when things seemed so rosy and we were looking forward to a couple of what we hoped were winnable games. And then, of course, the whole COVID thing happened and we didn't actually play again until Spurs visited Adams Park. And in some ways you slightly feel we've never quite recovered.
Because we've spoken before, that Preston game seemed to be, like, it should have been such a springboard.
It was, and exactly like you said earlier on, sort of, you know, the mini run that we feel like we needed to go on. You thought maybe that was the beginning of that, because after it we had QPR and then we had Sheffield Wednesday, and, you know, they definitely at the time looked like even more winnable games because both teams were in terrible form. But of course, neither of them happened because there was a COVID outbreak that we had. There was a COVID outbreak in Sheffield Wednesday's camp. And yeah, as I say, you know, after the Spurs game, we then had the Brentford 7-2 and we never really seem to have recovered. But let's hope we can have a similar result, beating Preston on Saturday.